Hello again, this is Doc Rotten from Horror News Radio and Gruesome Magazine. Joining me tonight is the one and only Jeff Mohr. He is here to talk about a Netflix original starring Thomas Jane, based on material from Stephen King. It is called 1922. Jeff, how you doing?
I am doing excellent. Looking forward to talking about this film.
Yeah, this is described as a crime drama horror, and it is not your, I would say this is not your conventional horror film. Would you agree?
Yes, I would agree.
Well, tell us a little bit about what this film is about and why it's called 1922.
Well, it takes place in 1922, but it's about a farm family that in Nebraska, and it's tough making ends meet. And it turns out the wife has just inherited another 100 acres, and the farmer's all excited about finally having enough land to support his family, and the wife wants to sell it and go open a dress shop in Omaha. So he's kind of driven to a point to take drastic measures, and his son, teenage son, helps him, and then they have a hard time living with what they've done.
So you were saying that the guilt leads to the horror.
It does, but I think there's a touch here of, first off, Thomas Jane is literally, I don't know if I'd have recognized him if I didn't know he was in the film. He's extremely gaunt, and he does the best accent, sort of, and I'm not trying to be derogatory, but sort of a poor dirt farmer accent. And he's a hard man. He looks at things very practically. His son looks up to him. And then his wife is played by Molly Parker, who I discovered, I know she's been around a lot longer than that, from Deadwood, and became a fan of hers. And she does a really good job as well. So this film reminded me of a lot of things from the past, in that, it could be that he's going crazy, a la The Shining. And it could be that there's actually some haunting going around, that these spirits are coming back to haunt him and he can't get away from them. And then we also have the case of is he hallucinating, or are those rats are kind of a ongoing theme as well, which is another thing you get from that appear in several Stephen King stories.
Yeah, I somebody online I once read said that instead of this being boo scary, this is ooh scary. Is that accurate?
Ooh scary. Well, there aren't any. I don't think there's any jump scares, if I remember correctly. This is just building insanity, kind of a way. I don't know if they carried it off in the movie as well, but in the book, The Shining, this guy is just, Jack Torrance is just going slowly more and more crazy. And the character here, Wilfred James, he makes what seems like a rational decision, and I'm going to spoiler here a little bit, to kill his wife, and his son helps him. And things go okay for a while, but then not so much. And literally every single part of his life starts to fall apart. In the end, he's in a room alone. I think it's 7 years later, maybe. He's lost all his land. Well, I am spoiling the hell out of it, but it's a very dark movie, and I like things where you don't know for sure. Was it supernatural, or was it the guilt that drove him insane?
So how well is the film as far as approaching it? Is it well directed by Zak Hilditch, or is it all resting on Thomas Jane as the lead actor?
I think it's well directed. I never once, I enjoyed the entire thing. I was engrossed from beginning to end, and I never felt like there was only one thing in there that bothered me a little bit. And I live in the middle of Iowa, surrounded by cornfield, And I couldn't figure out what he was doing. There's several scenes where he's out there with a shovel digging a little bit around the corn. And so I don't know if he's checking the roots or something, but I just don't see people doing that. So, but maybe in 1922, that's what they did. But other than that, I thought it was pitch perfect. All these different roles in the small town.
Well, you mentioned comparing this to Gerald's Game, which also was on Netflix and is also a Stephen King film, and that's been highly regarded in critics. How does this stand up next to that?
So I actually like this better, and I don't want to I guess I'll stand up to that. This is what I like, a very atmospheric film. In Gerald's Game, for some reason, there were some spots where I was waiting for something to happen. It seemed like it was dragging on a little bit. I'm not saying it's not a really, really good movie, but I actually like this one better.
Well, that's a good...
That's me.
That's you. Well, that's a good seg into your score and your favorite scene from 1922.
My score, I am going to give it a 4, maybe a 4.25. And favorite scene, I think it's when he had to identify his son's body. And that was extremely nasty. And I could feel his pain and the realization that this was all because of him. And then we also had the rats, evidence of the rats involved as well.
Mm. And that was one of there's surprisingly a number of gruesome scenes, although they're not overt. They're well placed and they have meaning in the story. And would you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. I think there's several places, both with the death, the death of the wife, the death of the son, the death of the girlfriend, all of those things. And then the ghosts that he's seen, whether they're ghosts of his past or real supernatural ghosts, and the rats, those things are all very creepy, but they're not dwelt on and they're not in your face, I guess. This is one of those things I like. I like atmospheric films like this, and this is extremely atmospheric, I thought.
Excellent. Yeah, you may never see a cow the same way again. Let's say goodnight. Thank you once again for a great review.
Thank you.
Be sure to visit GruesomeMagazine.com to listen to the other Gruesome podcasts, Horror News Radio, and Decades of Horror. Also check out the Gruesome Magazine Quarterly, available in digital and print-on-demand format. Gruesome Magazine.